In this section, we're going to continue looking at JavaScript basics, and we're going to work with some conditional statements and operators. These will allow you to make comparisons on one or multiple conditions and execute code if certain conditions are met. So we have control flow expressions, which include if-else statements, switch case statements, and the ternary operator, which uses the question mark. We'll also work with the logical operators, which you're probably familiar with, or, and not. And we have the relational operators, which allow you to compare two values and evaluate whether one is smaller or larger or equal to the other one. So let's get started. So going back to our software environment on the JavaScripting page, I've kind of neatened things up a bit. I've added some labels for the different examples we've done on objects, Java strings, tags, just to kind of make it more organized. So if you want to take a moment to update your JavaScripting page with these labels, you can, or we can just go from here. I'm going to copy and paste my strings label, and I'm going to make a section for our conditional expressions. And I'm just going to go add a button. And for our text, I'm just going to put if, and we'll go to events and open a JavaScript window. So we'll do a simple example using the value of our speed tag. And we can use our debug write function to see the results. So first, let's get a reference to our tag. So I'll do let tag speed equals, use our autocomplete function. And if you remember, I can hit Control J to get a list of all my tags. And I'll just choose my speed tag. So now tag speed is a reference, and I can just call read on it. So now tag speed should have the actual value. And we can just say if tag speed is greater than 44, and then we're going to put a code block, which is just going to be curly braces. So we will just debug.write, and we're going to give this button's name just so we know where the script is. And we'll do our message. We'll say the speed is fast. So I guess we're considering 45 fast. And we can put an else statement here. Else, and we also need to do a curly block there. And I'm just going to copy this debug.write. And I will do, if it's not greater than 44, we will just print out the speed is slow. So the way this works is, if this evaluates to true, it will execute this code. However, if this evaluates to false, then it will execute the else code. So let's check it out in runtime. So we go to our JavaScripting page. We'll throw up our debug window. And right now the speed is 23. So it says the speed is slow. And then we have a write tag that puts something higher than 44 in it. Run it again, it will say the speed is fast. So that's pretty simple. So in the first example, we can really only assign two values, the speed is fast or the speed is slow, but we can extend this to however many we want using else if. So I'm going to leave this example intact and just copy the button. And on this particular button, I'll just make this the else if example. And we still have our code there. So let's say that the motor has all kind of speed ranges. So for our first if, let's just see if it's equal to 0. And we use the equality operator, two equal signs. So it tests if tag speed is exactly 0. So in this case, we'll put the motor is stopped. We'll go to the next range, else if. And so here we're going to use some logical operators. So let's say if it's greater than 0 but less than 20. So I'll just copy this and say if tag speed is greater than 0 and, which is 2 ampersands, tag speed is less than or equal to 20, so that's between 0 and 20, we'll put our code block down. And I'll just copy our debug statement. So we'll say the motor is going slow. And I can copy the whole thing here again and give it a different range. If it's greater than 20 and it's less than 50, we'll just say the motor is cruising. I'll put my is back in up here. And then we'll give it one more range, greater than 50 and less than 90. We'll just make our message going really fast. And then our final else will be executed if none of these statements were true. So that would mean it's going greater than 90. So we'll just make our message out of control. So this else if gives you a way to put several different parameters and check for ranges. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. So let's take a look at runtime. So we'll go to JavaScripting and pull up our debug window. And right now we're going 45. So we're cruising. We'll change it to 23. Still cruising. So let's go to check out our 0. So we got our motor is stopped, and we'll go 12. That's gonna give us our slow. And then let's put it up at 49. So above 50 is going really fast, and then let's see what we get above 90. Out of control. So you can use else if statements combined with logical operators and relational operators to really do an unlimited number of evaluations on an expression or on a set of values. So now I have an assignment for you. First, if you didn't code along with the video example, please go back and follow along with the video and write the code on the conditional expression button. Once you have that working, I want you to add 4 motor graphic objects to the screen, one for each color, gray, green, yellow, and red, and name them appropriately so they're easy to kind of pick out for a script. And then I want you to update the script on the conditional expression button to only show the appropriate motor by color when the conditional range is met by the speed tag. So when the speed is exactly 0, only show the gray motor. If the speed is between 1 and 20 inclusively, show only the green motor. If the speed is between 21 and 50, show yellow, and between 51 and 90, show only red. So here's what it's going to look like if the speed tag is 0 and you hit the button, it's going to show gray. If it's above 0 but less than 20, it'll show green. If it's above 20 but less than 50, it'll show yellow. And it's above 50, then it's going to show red. Once you have that working, let's make it actually useful. I want you to take the script off the button that you just completed and put it on the change event of the IO field where we're showing the speed tag. Modify the script so that it runs every time the value changes to automatically show the appropriate motor. And stack the motor graphics on top of each other so it appears if only the motor color is changing. So to see what this should look like in runtime, you'll have your motors all stacked up one on top of another. And you can see when it's 0, it's gray. When it's less than 20, it's green, then yellow less than 50, and then red above that, and then finally it should stay red anything above 90. So go ahead, pause the video, complete the assignment, and then when you come back, I'll show you how I did it. Okay, so we'll start by adding the motors, and you can choose any motors you want. It's really just the color that matters. So I'll grab a gray motor, a red motor, a green motor, and a yellow motor. And we're going to name these appropriately so that we can pick them out. So scroll down to your name, and I will just call this gray motor, and this one green motor, and this one red motor, and finally yellow motor. And then on the else if script, if we go and look at our function, I created variables to reference each of the motors, and I used the screen.items collection. And then inside the ranges, I merely turned the visible properties on and off as appropriate. So if the tag speed was exactly 0, then only the gray motors visible went to true, everything else went to false. If it's between 0 and 20, then I set green motor visible. If it's between 20 and 50, I set yellow motor visible. And if it's between 50 and 90, red is visible. And then the same thing for the else statement. So pretty straightforward. And then the next thing I did was I just copied this entire script. And I took my motors. If you hold down your shift key, you can select each one, or you can just lasso them. And you can use your alignment tools to just left justify and top justify. And then I'm just going to stick these right under my IO field and hit save. And then the trick here is just knowing where to put your script. So if we look at our IO field, you're looking for the property that shows the number, and that is process value. That's where your tag is. And then you have to expand this, and you have to add a script to your change. And I left the script exactly as it was, except instead of creating a variable to the speed tag, I'm just using the passed in value. Of course, I could have just replaced every instance of tag speed with value, but that's a lot of changes. So I just did this, and of course it works. So that's it for that assignment. Now let's talk about using switch case. So if we go to our JavaScript reference on the main page, let's just scroll down, and under control flow, let's take a look at switch. And I call this switch case, and it's the same in quite a few different languages. But you have a constant expression, so you can't really do logical operators or relational operators here. You're just looking at an expression, and you can add a case for every value of the expression that you would like to do something with. So in this particular example, they have an expression which is the string papayas. When they pass this in, they check it. So if it's oranges, then it prints out a price for oranges. If it's mangoes, it doesn't do anything. If it's papayas, then it's going to log mangoes and papayas for $2.79 a pound. Notice that there is a break statement, and you have to do this or it's going to process every case below the one that it meets. And we also have a default case that allows us to just have a catch-all. So you can see the syntax here. You can have as many case values as you want. You can use a string, you can use an integer as your expression. So for this example, let's go create a tag. And I'm just going to add another tag here called mode, and I'm going to leave it an integer. And so the value in this is going to represent what mode the motor is in. What I'll do is just throw it on the screen just to allow us to see the value, and I'll go ahead and copy a label over. And then let's take a look at that tag, and we can use a case switch statement to put some text near the motor to tell the operator which mode it's actually in. So I have a quick challenge for you. Create a variable which will get the value of our mode tag. So go ahead and hit pause, and then when you come back, I'll show you how I did it. Okay, so this one's pretty simple. So I'll just create a variable called mode, and I'll use my auto completion, tags, open parenthesis, and then you can use your Control J to show our browser. Pretty neat trick. And we just have to do a read call to get the value. For this example, we're just going to switch mode, and we're going to put a code block. So I'll put like a little note there that this is the end. And you simply just write case and then whatever value. So let's, for now, just do debug.write and then item.name so we know which button this came from. And let's just print out motor is stopped. And then we have to put break. And we can do this all on the same line, but you have to put your curly braces there. And so I'm just going to copy this to kind of make it easier and just throw a couple of these. So let's say that mode 1 is idle and mode 2 is production and mode 3 is in maintenance. Okay, pretty simple. And then we'll need a default and we'll just say mode is unknown. And it's good practice to kind of indent your code here. So I'm just going to add some tabs in here just so it's kind of easier to read. And let's go to runtime and test this out. So we'll go to our JavaScript page, go to our debug window, and here it prints out motor is stopped. And for 1, it's idle, and for 2, it's production, for 3, it's maintenance, and then anything else, it's unknown. Pretty simple. So switch case is useful if you've got one value and it's going to have different conditions. And so a lot of times you may have a memory error in the PLC that has a mode like this that's just a straight up integer. And it might indicate something like the mode that equipment's in or something like that. But you can't use logical expressions and things like that with it. So the next challenge for you is I would like you to use a switch case statement and throw a text box. So in the text of this text box, I want you to just put in the name of the mode that the motor is in. And you can also change the color if you want based on the mode, and you can just use whichever color you like. And so go ahead and pause the video, complete this, and when you come back, I'll show you how I did it. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to default the text here, and I'm just going to put in mode. And I'm going to give it a name. So I'll just say text mode. And on our switch statement under events, we're going to need to get a reference to the text box. So let text mode equal, we'll use our autocomplete screen.items. I can use Control J. And here's our text mode. Now, one thing that I've found is if you're typing this out, if you use single quotes in the item collection, it will not make the reference. So pro tip for you, always use double quotes if you're using the items collection. And then give yourself a little space. I'm going to copy this and we'll do the text property equals stopped. And I'll just copy that. You can do idle. You can do production. And finally, unknown. So we'll save this and go to runtime and test it out. So we'll throw up our debug window. Here's mode. And we've got stopped. Set it to 1. Idle. Set it to 2. Production. 3. Maintenance. And anything else is unknown. So what about the color? You could do your forecolor or you could do the background color. You just have to go look and see which property you want to change. we can look at maybe changing the background color. Okay, so that's going to be the property that you want. And you're going to need to use the RGB values. I'm just going to copy this because I'll use that maybe for maintenance. And we'll go back to our script and just do text mode dot back color equals, and if you remember, if you go to HMI runtime dot math dot RGB, we can just paste that in and that will give us the orange. So that's kind of a quick way to get the RGB values. And I'll use a similar method to pick out some other colors. Of course, you can go online and look for the web colors if you want. So let's try this one for idle. I'll put the RGB value there and just copy this. And instead we'll use the blue color. And then for production, I'll just use straight up green. So for our green value, we'll make it 255. And for our blue value, we'll also make it 0. And then for maintenance, we were going to use that orange color. So I'm just going to go ahead and steal that back for maintenance. And then for stop, let's say that we're going to make it red. And then we can also pick one for unknown, which would be yellow. So we could just do full red and full green, which should give us yellow. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Go to our JavaScripting. So there's stopped and it's red. There's switch and it's idle. There's maintenance. And there's unknown. So the last thing is go ahead and put that script on the change event of your IO field for your mode. And that's pretty straightforward. So go ahead and pause the video and do that. And then when you come back, I'll show you what I did. Okay, so I'm just going to copy our script. And I'll go to the IO field, and as you may have guessed, we're going to do basically the same thing. We'll go to the change event of our process value. Okay, so I'm just going to paste this in, and I'm going to replace our tag read with just value because the tag value is passed in. You could leave it as the tag read, but then you're reading the tag when you already have the value. If we save this and go to runtime, it should work like the other example we did. So now if we change it, we shouldn't have to change the button. It should do it automatically. So finally, we come to the ternary operator. I think of this as a conditional expression or a conditional operator. If we go to the JavaScript reference, you can search for ternary, or if you go to the expressions and operators, you can find it under a conditional operator. So the syntax is pretty simple. You have a condition, which is just an expression that's going to evaluate to true or false, so equality or relational operators. And then you put a question mark, and then the expression you want to execute if the condition is true, and a colon, and the expression you want to execute if the condition is false. So let's go take a look at an example. So let's say that we have a business rule on our plant floor that if our motor is in production mode and the speed reaches 99 or greater, we want to flash this mode label. We'll flash the background color to let the operator know that something's wrong. So we're going to need to get both the speed tag and the mode tag. So we'll put it on a button, and on my button I'll go to properties and I'll just put ternary operator. and we'll open a JavaScript window, and we're just going to need to get 2 tags. So I can just access the tags object and hit Control J. That's going to give me my tag table. There's my mode. So we need to set this equal to a variable. So let's just call this tag mode. And I'll just copy that, drop down a line, call this tag speed, and I can just hit Control J in here and do that. So now we have both of our values. So let's say let flash enable, that's going to be a Boolean variable, equal, and we'll put our conditional expression. So I'm going to do tag mode equals 2, which is production, and tag speed is greater than or equal to 99. So you kind of have to compartmentalize these. And then here's our ternary operator. And if we want to set this variable to true or false, we can just do true : false. And then the value of flash enable is going to be true if both of these are true, and false if one or both of them are false. Then we're going to set our flashing property of our text field up here, text mode, to whatever flash enable ends up being. So how do we do that? So I'm going to pull this up so you can see. We'll right click, go to snippets, HMI runtime, screen, and we have 2 functions here: enable flashing of an item property current screen and change flashing settings. I have tried just using this one, and as of this video I have not been able to get this to work. I always have to use the second one. So we'll go back and do the change flashing. I think what's going on is you have to call this one first to set up on the object your flashing settings, because this first RGB call is setting up your on color, and the second one is setting up your off color and is setting up the rate. And there's nowhere to do that on the object that I can find. And so I think this function call has to be called first. So we're going to go with that. I can just put my cursor in here and hit Control J, take my text mode, and whatever our flash enable is, we're just going to put it here. And if flash enable is true, then the property will start flashing. If it's false, it will not flash. So let's check this out in runtime. So we'll sign in. And right now, if we hit this, nothing's going to happen because neither one of our conditions have been met. So let's put it in production mode and hit it. And then let's put this at 99 and hit it. And you can see it starts flashing. It actually takes a second or 2 before it starts up. Now, if I falsify one of the conditions and hit my ternary operator, it stops. That's all for this section. In the next section, we're going to talk about loops and debugging in the Chrome browser.